Welcome to the Relationship Revolutions podcast with Alan Watts, the love engineer. The world needs more healthy, loving and lasting relationships, yet school does not teach how to attract, build and keep them.
G'day Nisanka and welcome to Relationship Revolutions. So for those of you who are listening, I will give Nisanka a brief introduction. She is based in the south coast of England and she's a co-parenting with narcissistic people coach, which is a bit of a mouthful. So did I get that right?
Yeah, I help parents who parent with narcissistic partners or ex-partners that might be trying to co-parent, but that is not possible. Co-parenting is an impossible thing to do with a narcissist.
So just for clarity, for those people who may not have heard the term before, well, I find it very hard. What is a narcissist?
Oh, that's a good question. So there are two things to look at. One is the narcissistic personality disorder. It is not something that I talk about. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or even a qualified professional who can diagnose. So that is not the area of focus, although I may talk about it occasionally. So the one thing that I'm more focused on is the narcissism and narcissistic personality traits that exist amongst many people. They may not have been diagnosed. The likelihood of them being diagnosed is slim to none, but that's what I'm talking about. So it's a cluster of behavioral traits that is demonstrated or manifested for a prolonged period of time, particularly in very close, intimate relationships. That actually leaves the people in their lives, narcissist life, traumatized and abused as a result of it. So there are core personality traits of a narcissist, and one of them is lack of empathy, or to be precise, they do have some level of empathy, but that's cognitive empathy that they have. Compassionate empathy is not something that they have. So lack of empathy, entitlement, grand sense of grandiosity about themselves, feeling like a victim all the time. And they're also, they have so much rage and they're angry, and they do not take any responsibility. You cannot hold them accountable, and also they're quite vindictive, and always the problem belongs to other people and they're the victim. So when you actually put them all together, it makes a very difficult person to be with, deal with, communicate with, and live with. So that's basically narcissism.
You mentioned there's two different types of empathy there, the cognitive empathy and the compassionate empathy.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So the cognitive is something that is rational, that you can actually observe and mirror back. So best example is, okay, so I'll put it into context, right? Say, for example, you come to me and then you declare some really, really bad news, so I can see you being upset. I can go, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through this, and that's it. I just mirrored what I saw, right? And then there's no feelings attached to it. There's no emotions attached to it. My heart is not involved in it. I'm not feeling your pain. I'm not feeling your sorrow. So I actually cannot connect, nor can I make room for your sadness and sorrow and grief in my life, right? So I can't give you the space. I can't hold the space because I lack the compassion. I lack the capacity because I'm not feeling it. Right? It's not something I experience in the sense. So compassionate empathy is that feeling and the connection and the ability to hold the space and do something for you and feel your pain. And the narcissistic people don't have it. So it very much stays with, oh, I'm sorry you're going through this. What's for dinner? Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that. Let's move on. Oh, I'm so sorry you're going through with this. Okay, have you done that report?
Yeah, very short, sharp, sudden change of focus. Because
Yeah, because they
from
don't
what
feel it.
from what I'm understanding is they have a resistance or a block to their own emotions, and they don't know how to handle or process theirs, let alone anyone else's.
Yes. So I've obviously been researching and reading a lot about how narcissistic people are made. And one of the main reasons that's cited as the reason for narcissism is childhood trauma. And so they do not develop the capacity or the language, actually, the language to be compassionate and empathetic towards other people. So you are right. So they've not processed it. But majority of us who haven't processed these emotions do understand that we have these things. We kind of see, I am sad, I'm really sad. We can see that there's a self-reflection going on. But with the narcissistic people, they don't have that level of self-reflection. So because their internal world is so grandiose, is so like nothing can go wrong with them, right? So they take these clues from the external world and they're trying to control the external world, and they're trying to match what's going on inside them with the external world, and therefore they want shortcuts and instant gratification all the time. So I think in sort of in a more understandable, shorter way, yes, these people haven't processed their own emotions, so they can't actually relate to somebody else's.
So from a personal perspective, or with a little bit of personal experience, it's not a very healthy environment to bring children into.
Before I'm going to answer the question with a yes or no, I'm going to have to sort of decode the question, because we use the word we bring children into this world. And yes, we have brought children into this world, but one of the biggest regrets, griefs that people who the healthy parent experience is, why did I even bring children into this world with this person? And I think we've got to acknowledge that once upon a time, there was once a time where we actually fell in love with this person as a result of their grooming process. So the narcissistic people went through a process of grooming us and making us idealize them, manipulating us, lying to us, bullying us, and actually earning our trust, love, and respect towards them, right? And commitment and loyalty as well, right? So we have, in a way, brought children into this world with the place of love, respect, commitment, and loyalty, and with the hope that with the hope and with the intention that we are bringing children into this world to be looked after, to be raised with love, right? So I think that's one of the things that we've actually got to look at and acknowledge. So we did not bring children into this world to hurt and to be put in through this experience. That wasn't the case. And second thing is, this is human life. Things change all the time. We go through ups and downs all the time. And our decision wasn't the abuse. Our choice wasn't the abuse. It is the choice that somebody else has unfortunately made towards us and towards the children, right? So to answer your question, why did we bring these children? I also think there are bigger things in play, like the universe, the influence, the God, or whatever the thing that you believe in, and however you interpret this. There's always some level of some level of in control in our life. There are certain things that we have no control in our life, and that unique genetic combination is a result of the unique two individuals that got together and made the baby. So your children are unique to you, they're a gift to you, and they've come through. They could have only come into this world because you got together with that particular person and made this baby. I think that, so you kind of have to look beyond what we can see and what we understand about the bigger powers to understand why the children are here. So I always think that some level of gratitude is in order to, so that because we have been gifted these children in our lives. So I'm always grateful that my child is in my life. And when I'm talking from a place of gratitude that my child is in my life, I don't have, or the question loses its power. The question, why did we even bring these children to this world with this person? It loses the power. But that comes from a process of healing and actually regulating yourself and learning to be grateful. This is not about forgiving the person who puts you through so much abuse. This is not even forgiving anybody really that hurts you, but this is about just more coming from a place of acknowledging and accepting that these things happen in our life. Nevertheless, we still have this gift with us, regardless of how they came into this world. So there isn't a yes or no answer to that one. But I think a regret, the regret that you have about bringing, or grief or regret you have about bringing children into this world with a person like that, you can process that by healing yourself and understanding there are bigger things and powerful things at play.
Yeah, it's like the old saying goes, you can't choose what happens to you in life, but you can choose how you respond to it.
Yes, you can. You absolutely can. You can. I mean, from a trauma perspective, that sounds like victim blaming. Because when the trauma happens, it's stored in the body, the nervous system is dysregulated, and what seems really simple to somebody may not be a simple decision to somebody who's actually going through this trauma
Definitely.
In the body. So I think we've got to have a lot of compassion towards those people who are unable to make the choices. And that's okay too. And I don't want to chastise people for not making any choices to improve life, and it's okay too, you know. Because I think I'm looking at so many cultural angles in some countries and people I have spoken to in the past, and looking at their lives, they're not in a position to make a choice even if they want to, because the restrictions are too much, the cultural, religious, political, economical, financial, that's just too much, you know. Challenging any of those things can actually have worse consequences to them, to the life that they live. So they kind of have accepted the way they live. Like, I'm just looking at my grandma's life and how she's accepted and how she's made it work for her. Could she have made a better choice? I can quite, ignorantly say, oh, why didn't she make a choice? But given the choice, given the circumstances that she was living in, I don't think she could have, even if she wanted to. So there has to be a great deal of compassion for people who are in these situations.
Yeah. So how, you say, when the other parent is a narcissist, you can't co-parent with them, no matter how much you'd like to. So what can you do?
You can parallel parent. You can parallel. So co-parenting is a concept that two individuals who mutually respect each other, two parents who mutually respect each other, come together and make decisions together with the best interest at heart of children, right? So they make the decisions for the children. But for a narcissist, their game is to win, and you cannot win, right? You can be kind to them and they will be triggered by your kindness. You can actually be really firm and sort of assertive with them, and they'll be triggered because their internal world is in constant chaos. So you really can't win. You can't come together to make a mutual decision, right? And narcissists have their interest at heart. That's the priority. That's the end game. That's the end goal. And even children come underneath that. So for a healthy parent, this becomes an extremely difficult battle. I always think about this Bertolt Brecht. Is a German writer. He has a very famous stage theater called the Caucasian Chalk Circle. Basically, the story is there's the tyranny of the sort of the powerful family, the kings and the queens, and they have a small child together, and there's the maid who looked after the child. During the war, the child gets abandoned by the king and the queen because they get attacked in the castle. So they leave the child with the nanny to go and save their own lives. They forget about the child, right? So this nanny sacrifices everything she's ever had, right? It's a really long story, but I'll get to this point. Even her own love of the life, and she has to marry a man, like a very old man, dying man, so that this child could have a name. Anyway, so the things calm down in the family, in the country, and this king and the queen return to their kingdom. Now they want the heir to the throne, and they find out this nanny is bringing the child up. Now they want to claim the child back. They want to win the heir back, because without an heir, they can't have the kingdom back, right? They can't rule the country. So the nanny refuses to give the child back. She keeps fighting. She's done all the parenting thing so far. She doesn't want to give up the child. She loves the child. So this judge, a drunkard judge, right, draws a chalk circle and asks them to put the child in the middle, and asks both mother, nanny, and the birth mother to pull the child. Whoever wins the child gets the child. That's the instruction that gets given. But the nanny, what do you think nanny's gonna do?
Pull the child's name out, or make sure that she's the only one that can.
Well, you know what? The nanny can't actually pull the child, because nanny knows if she does that, it hurts the child. So she lets go. And the queen wins the child. But the judge changes his mind, and he says, actually, queen, you can't have the child. It is the nanny who loves the child, therefore she will have the child. The whole point I'm saying this story is raising a child with a narcissist is like that. So there's the king and the queen, and who make sure they're okay. They live their grandiose life. It's all convenient for them. They go away, they disappear, they don't turn up, they don't look after the child. But when it's convenient for them, when it's useful for them, they return for the children. This is the whole scenario of raising a child with a narcissist. Whereas the solid parent will sacrifice their life, the freedom, the money, her health, and everything, and will do the heavy lifting of the parenting, which is the essential part of the parenting. But and they love the children so much that they will make sure that they do anything not to hurt the child. Whereas the narcissist, on the other hand, because they want to win, they will pull the child harder, even if it hurts the child, right? That's the whole point. Our family law system isn't like the judge who ruled it who ruled the whole case in favor of the nanny. Our situation is very different in family court, and I think the narcissistic people often win because of their power hunger, the power, the money they use, how they manipulate the court system. They don't have a problem lying, so they do tend to win these cases. I mean, I know of some cases where mother has no access to children, so it is an impossible dream, and it affects children. It traumatizes children. It makes children anxious, depressed, development delays, and, other behavioral problems, problems at school, abandonment issues. It's just PTSD, even CPTSD. Lots and lots of issues for children, as well as the person who's going through this abuse.
So how did you get into this world of coaching parents on narcissism?
I was the nanny. Let's put it that way. I was that nanny. How did I get into it? So I've been trained. I trained as a life coach a long time ago. I was in education for a long time. I was teaching and I was managing a nursery, and then I trained as a obstetric inspector. But I think it got to a point where I was so fed up and I was so depressed. I was suicidal, and I just didn't know where to go. So I was at home looking for work. Well, I didn't really want to do any work. I didn't know about narcissistic abuse at the time. So I came across coachings, and I trained as a life coach. And I kind of sort of started working with clients. And then I came across the word narcissism. I was in therapy myself, but I was receiving more like counseling and CBT, which is kind of changing your behavior. But narcissistic abuse doesn't necessarily mean it's your behavior that needs changing. It actually means you are going through abuse and control and coercion at home. And so I kind of like, I wasn't recovering from anything. So I ended up speaking to somebody. I met somebody at a networking event, met up with that person. They pointed me in the direction of EFT and matrix re-imprinting. And so I was quite cynical about these approaches. So I kind of like trained myself to be a practitioner. And then I started working and taking therapy for myself. And so I sort of gradually integrated matrix and EFT into the work I do as a life coach. And I kind of realized that a lot of people and who've come to get coaching from me have very similar issues. And sort of it resonated with me, and I was doing a lot of research around narcissism at this point. And after much thoughts and kind of going back and forth, hesitation, whatnots, I thought, you know what, I've learned a great deal of skills, and I've been through it. I can resonate with people who are going through this, and I'm gonna put myself out there and help people. And it wasn't an easy decision to come forward with this niche, if I'm honest, because it felt very vulnerable, because it's something that I've been through, I'm going through rather. But at the same time, I've also done a great job healing myself and learning new skills and raising a wonderful child. And I thought I just really wanted to share that knowledge with people.
Excellent. What was behind that depression? Was it living with a narcissist at the time, or was it a result of that relationship ending, or?
There was a number of reasons behind it. So I've had a very traumatic childhood growing up in Sri Lanka. A lot of major big boom trauma as a child. including, being so my parents were both narcissistic. I think whenever I talk about my parents and, use the word narcissistic, I can hear myself judging me for using that. This doesn't mean that I've cut them off, by the way. That doesn't mean that I am deeply connected to them either. So that I've found my balance. I found my balance, because there's no way I'm going to discard my parents. But it is a choice that people can make, and I support that choice if they want to. So my parents were that, and there was a lot of domestic abuse in the house. I also grew up in an environment, there was a civil war for a long time. So, and I've had, sexual abuse as a child. I've experienced sexual abuse as a child. And so there was my childhood was very traumatic. And when my daughter came to this world, I think everything was just really triggered, because it always does, doesn't it? Everything was really triggered. So I developed some level of anxiety back in 2014. And then I didn't treat it, didn't seek help. I was the superwoman. I can do it all, woman. I don't need any help. What's mental health? Very cynical about it, judgmental about it at the time. And so 2014, I didn't get any help, but it was it gradually grew, sort of got worse. And then I eventually did seek some help, got some CBT, and I got given 10 sessions, I think, to work with. But I'm an academic person. I do my research, and I'm very verbal, and articulate. And when I went to the session, instead of actually me connecting with my own issues, I ended up giving them the answers that they wanted to hear, which is something that people often do in therapy, I think. And it then gradually developed to generalized anxiety disorder, and still not saw any help. And then that developed to severe depression. Still did not ask for any help, until I actually found myself saying goodbye. I was basically apologizing to my child and saying goodbye, and I just found myself, I was like, what am I doing? That was one of the moments. Obviously, there's many moments that the universe talking to me, like something needs to be done. There were several moments, but that was one big moments where I was like, oh my God, I need help. And I did get some medication to begin with, and but it was actually releasing the trauma from my nervous system that actually enabled me to feel safe, heal, feel good in having boundaries in place. Until that happened, I talked until I was blue in my face about what's happened with the memories, and it just made it worse. It made it worse, but it did bring some level of awareness, but it made it worse. But it was actually using EFT and Matrix to really regulate my nervous system, that enabled me to proper go towards healing.
So if you could just pick up the phone and talk to your past self back at that time at 2014, what did she need to hear from you today?
The only thing I would say is, it's okay, you take your time, because these are not things that we can rush, and people have to go through that process. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see in the coaching and the therapy space is pushing people to go find a solution, right? We shouldn't. I use the word should very carefully here. We can provide information so that the people become aware and eventually make a choice, right? And I've made that mistake in the past. So I would say to the 2014 people, I love you. I'm here for you. I'm holding the space for you. Whenever you feel ready, you'll be in touch with your own parts that's hurting. But that's your choice.
Yeah. Something I've found through learning kinesiology is the unconscious mind will not release or reveal anything until that part is ready to be healed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you push.
Absolutely. And this is why I offer a lot of flexibility in the work I do, because this is a journey that I've been through, and I've learned about therapy and coaching as a client first before I became the practitioner myself. You know, I remember a few years ago when I was going through the training that I was working with another practitioner, my subconscious was not ready for her to access any of them. I was rationally ready to talk, right? But my subconscious was really blocking me. It was a physical experience, it was a physical feeling. It wasn't letting me. And I was speaking to my trainer at the time. I was like, I wanted to, but I couldn't. What's happened? Was she doing something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? He was going, don't panic about it. It is what it is. Just allow that to come to the server when it's ready. And I think what you will notice also in your life, you will meet people, you will hear messages, you will face experiences that will, if you can pay attention, that will give you the message, it's time, and it's time for you to let it go. You know, um, grief. I'll give you a personal example, experience. Grief was one of the biggest things that I was holding on to. It was too painful for a lot of reasons, and I think narcissistic abuse people, survivors, will experience this grief in so many angles. I just was not ready. I wasn't ready to let it go, and I was holding it. The more I was holding on to it, I turned towards stress eating. You know, I can feel that grief, where I end up in the kitchen, opening, going between the cupboards and the fridge, like eating to soothe myself, right? But something happened. Something happened. Obviously, I'm not going to go into too much details, but something happened. And I knew it was time for, I just knew physically it was time for me to let go of this grief. And I ended up sort of decluttering the house and going through that process. I was letting go of a lot of grief that I was holding. Guess what's happened? Suddenly, I've stopped comfort eating, and I didn't even try. I stopped comfort eating. I went to myself one day. You know what? It's time for me to focus on my weight gain now. It just naturally happened. So a lot of us try to push this healing, but we can't. What we can do is, to train ourselves to pay attention to what's happening within the body and listen to the messages, acknowledge the messages, and then if it's the right time, your body, subconscious mind, everything will be ready. The timing as well, it'll all be ready to release that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't rush the process. I know there's a lot of, like, even Tony Robbins is like, get instant change. Well, you can make a decision,
Yeah.
but unless you're actually working with all that stuff in the unconscious, then very little is going to change instantly unless it is ready to at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said to you, when I was first experiencing therapy, I'm a very rational, intelligent, academic person. I read books, I learned about the theory, I told them what they needed to hear. I wasn't ready to take responsibility for my own healing. I just wanted to make sure that I came across as the best patient. As the best patient, that was also a trauma response, people's pleasing. And it is when you get to that point where you can no longer take it, people. But here's another different angle though. Knowing this knowledge, right? Knowing this, that sometimes most of us get to that point where everything is shocking, we're at the rock bottom, and then we don't have a choice but we pick ourselves up. So you are on the road to that place. You already know you're on the right. So you have this knowledge already. So if you want to, you can pause and make a decision. Am I going to go in that direction, or am I going to do something about this? Right? So there is a choice that you can make, because the knowledge is out there quite freely available for people to inform themselves. So there is a choice. There is a choice.
Yeah, knowledge on its own is very useful, but it's only when you apply that knowledge where it has the true power.
Oh, absolutely. What Tad, I know you've worked with Tad for a while. Tad always says, my business mentor, how to avoid meditating. That is to read books about meditation.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same with narcissism as well. The information is out there, readily available freely. And I look at some information and they're very biased and loyalty creating. I am always loyal to people who've been through narcissistic abuse and the survivors. I'm always loyal to those people. But part of that loyalty also means bringing information on a more non-partial way, so that acknowledging that narcissistic people are also human beings, right?
Yeah.
And also pointing out that, and also sort of giving information in a way without vilifying them. Because what happens when you create this black and white scenario through the information we give, we vilify the narcissist, we angelize the survivor, but you're kind of losing the opportunity to heal yourself, and then you go, oh yeah, no, he did. No, that's exactly what's happening in the narcissist mind. Black and white thinking, you're the problem, I'm not the problem. I don't think my job is to actually encourage people to be in that place through the information. So I'm very careful. I mean, I might be getting it wrong or pointed out, but I'm very cautious and conscious about creating this content to empower people to make a choice and regain their agency, because that's the only place where we will heal, when we hold ourselves all accountable, well-being and healing.
Narcissistic partners don't like it when you start healing.
Oh no, because they start losing control over you. And also, you know what, that these people have a gift, and this is through my own experience. These people have a gift to know whether you're healing or not. They can sense your healing. They can sense that you're happy. They can sense that you're being empowered, and they can sense that you're getting your confidence back and your authenticity back. And what they do, they turn it up a notch. They cage you even more.
Yeah.
They do cage you even more, right? So this is why it's very difficult for people who are in these situations to leave or recover or make decisions about what they're going to do, because they sense it. It's like they have a sixth sense for other people's happiness and authenticity. They cannot stand it. They really cannot stand it. Very jealous people.
Yeah, something just came up for me that Jordan Peterson says when he's talking about divorce. And he says, it's crazy. He said, you can break the legal agreement, but you never really get divorced when there are children involved.
That is so spot on. That is so spot on. And it's different angles, isn't it? Like, you have to look at the legally you are sharing children, biologically you're sharing children. Biologically they're made, they're part you and they're part them. And from children's perspective, and some children choose to have a relationship with their other parent, even though they're abusive and neglectful and whatnot, and some children choose not to. And even children choosing not to, I don't see it as a win, because there is still grief involved. Your only win is healing. Your only win is healing. That's the thing. And many people, and I speak to many people, I have a community that we gather once a month, and, we share stories together. And I listen to people. Some people choose, and this is okay, and this is not me chastising anybody, but some people choose the legal route to win children back sometimes, to win something back, to win justice. But you can't. Unfortunately, there's no justice in a situation like narcissistic abuse. There should be, ideally. There should be. Justice system itself, it says in the name justice. We would need justice, but there is no justice. You can't let these people go as long as you share children. So your only win, your only peace, your only space for you is healing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a guy called Colin McCready on an interview a couple of weeks ago. He specializes in parental alienation. And one of the things that he mentioned that really struck a chord with me, not necessarily brilliantly nice chord at the time, he says, you want to fight that injustice of the alienation. He said, the challenge is, one, you go in there with a cannon, but they've got a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to use it. He said, you have a choice to make. You either fight the injustice, or you have a relationship with your kids. That really hit home, because I was so close to going down that legal route.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how is that going to impact my relationship with the kids? How is that going to impact her relationship with the kids and all that kind of thing? So, and plus when they're 13 now, so it would take at least a year to go through the legal system. That's another year closer to when they're legally adults and they can make their own decisions. So is it worth it?
And this is one of the biggest things, and I keep hammering, keep saying over and over and over. Choose the relationship between you and your children. You win. You win and your children win. And let the narcissist do whatever the F they want to do. Right?
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. In a way, it really is that simple, but it's not that simple. It really is that easy, but it's also not that easy, right? But you have got, no, let me rephrase, not you have got to. When you choose your relationship, gotta be careful with the words I use. But I think it comes from a really good place. I'm like, please choose that relationship with your children. When you choose your relationship with your children, right, your children are protected in a way that you will never be able to protect them going through the legal system. Going through the legal system in itself is very traumatic for children. And you and the stress, the financial and all the other stress that you're putting yourself through will only make you unavailable to your children emotionally. So it's a double whammy for children, having a neglectful, abusive, controlling one parent and also an emotionally absent parent on the other side, that whom they can actually otherwise relate to, and you can be the sanctuary for your children where they can come to, they can explore who they are, their voice, their relationship with themselves. You can be the sanctuary. You might be creating this sanctuary on top of a field of landmines because of your experience. But you know what? Show your children how to dig these landmines out one by one, right? When none of us are born on a field of bed, we're not born on a bed of roses. None of us are. We all have traumas. So show your children how you navigate it. Show how kick-ass you are and incredible you are. And they will look up to you, right? They will look up to you one day and say, you know what? You did this. You did this. And you didn't put the burden on me while doing it. Right? And that connection, that relationship that you have with your children, narcissist will never ever be able to have, even if they own the rest of the world. So
Yeah.
you win. You win.
Because they don't
But
have
you
that
don't need
relationship
work.
with themselves.
Yeah. But but then this is where the work that you need to do on yourself is non-negotiable, because without you doing the work on yourself and healing, this connection is an illusion. It keeps
Yeah.
going away, keeps going away, keeps going away. So you win as long as you put the healing as a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. The one challenge with providing that safe space for children is when you don't get to see them.
Yeah.
That's when it gets difficult.
Yeah. So this is another challenge that people have. So there's sometimes the 50-50 custody, there's the 70-30 custody, there's all sorts of percentage that the court decides. But you have,
Or there's the other one of whenever the narcissist decides you can have that custody.
yes, that is also like the entitled behavior. Actually, I want children.
That's kind of where I'm at the moment. So
Yeah, there's no consistency for children. Yeah, absolutely. And
no.
I honestly empathize with you. And here's a perspective for you. If you're worried about children being with them 50% of the time or 70% of the time, focus on the 30% or the 10% that you have with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Build up your energy, healthy energy, and give them the level of connection, the level of healthy relationship they can experience with you, right? That 70% or 80% with the narcissist cannot influence that, right? Give it. What we can do is what we can do. How things turn out to be is completely out of our control. That obviously has to, that we have to consider that as a limitation of the work that we do. However, and I really want to emphasize, focus on what you can do with your children for that 20% of the time. If that's all you have, that's all you have. Say children don't love you, they don't want to have a relationship with you, but you know you've done your best. That'll help you grieving. And I'm not saying these are easy things to hear or face or go through, but I've spoken to older people who've got adult children who are narcissistic and children who really continue to hurt these parents because they obviously they were influenced by the other parent, who is narcissistic. And you know what? They still live a happy life. They experience grief of losing a child, of having to cut contact with their own children, but they still find purpose and meaning in their life and still live a happy life. So there's still a possibility, I acknowledge all the difficulties that going through this, hearing this, you might be triggered. That being said, life has given us this for some reason. We're facing it. So we've got nothing but to face it. And when we face it in the best possible way we can.
Yeah, life is a lesson, as they say.
Yes, sometimes I look up to the news like, what the, what?
Oh yeah.
Which is okay, when you have moments like that, do that, but don't give up on yourself. Just don't give up on yourself. Not yet.
Yeah, the way I describe the whole divorce and separation and everything that's come with it, it's like a beautiful gift. It's just in shit wrapping paper, but you've actually got to unwrap everything to find the magic inside.
Absolutely.
So Nisanka, as I know you've got to be away for a client session any minute now. Where can people get hold of you?
You can get hold of me through my website, www.coachingwithnisanka.com. And then you can also find me on Instagram, coparenting with a narcissist coach. LinkedIn is Nisanka Wickramarachchi. You can just find me there. And then I'm also on Facebook, Nisanka Wickramarachchi, and I'll give you the name and I'll give you the link and you can post it.
Yeah. And final question.
If you Google me, if you Google me, Coaching with Nisanka, I'm kind of on top.
So final question is a question I ask everyone that comes on, and they don't get any warning for it, as you haven't either. So that question is, as this podcast is called Relationship Revolutions, if there was one thing that would bring a revolution to the world of dating and relationships, what would that one thing be?
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I've got like a ton of things from my own experience. Okay. If somebody is trying to manufacture a connection right at the beginning, run. Absolutely run and don't look back. Block everywhere. That is one thing. And I think, and also listen to your body. Your body tells you whether these people are good or not. And even if they're the most handsome, the most successful, the people that ticking all your boxes, and if your body is telling you don't, then just don't. I'm not sure if that's a big enough revelation.
It's beautiful. Nisanka, thank you for joining me, and we will see you again sometime in the near future.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Relationship Revolutions podcast with Alan Watts, the Love Engineer. If you found this episode useful, please like, subscribe and share.